Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast with yours truly, Craig, and with me today is Vince Gerardo. How's it going, Vince?
Going outstanding, Craig. How are you?
Excellent. The Brewers, the 2025 season has begun. The Brewers kind of stumbled out of the gates, kind of barraged by the Torpedo Bats in New York to start the season. Started 0-4, but they have clawed their way back and are currently, as of this taping, stand at a 500 record. And they've had to traverse some pretty crazy pitching injuries, which we'll go over. I guess on the bright side of things, I know you were able to attend opening day at AmFam Field, Vince, and also the two of us were able to catch a game and a nice win. Nestor Cortez's first start as a Brewer at AmFam, which they won against.
Hopefully not his last.
1-0, which was awesome.
Hopefully not his last start at AmFam or as a Brewer, considering he's already dealing with the injury bug.
Very ominous. And then you, of course, got to catch the Brewers' entire series, I believe, out in Denver, Colorado, correct?
Yep, I went to all three games. Brew Crew Review was on the scene. We were definitely tweeting about it, interacting with a lot of fans, tons of Brewer fans out in Colorado. So I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that here at this episode as well.
Awesomeness. So, all right. So I guess to get right into it, I guess with the Brewers, okay, let's go over the pitchers currently on the Brewers IL. Well, this is quite the list. Obviously, Brandon Woodruff has not made his way back from the IL yet, but he is doing a rehab start here to ramp up. So that's encouraging. Part of the discouraging thing is Nestor Cortez recently went on the IL. Aaron Civale's on the IL. Tobias Myers on the IL. Previous to that, Aaron Ashby and DL Hall are on the IL. Robert Gasser, of course, is still in the IL from having Tommy John surgery last year. Probably won't come back to pitch at all until later in this season. And that's 7 starting pitchers on the IL. Somehow, in spite of that, the Brewers have had to, the front office has done a, masterful job of traversing this time just to keep the Brewers afloat. And as we stand, we're 500. And I think the arrow is pointing up and hopefully in the health direction too. But what's our overall take with the Brewers start of the season?
I mean, yeah, definitely dealing with the injury bug. Terrible series in New York to start off. I think everyone was disappointed by how the season started. I don't really want to get back into all of that because those were very depressing games to watch, quite frankly. And I'm not going to just blame the bats. I think we just, came out very flat. A lot of good moments from the homestand. I know you and I saw a nice game, Craig. I think, there were definitely some highlights during the games against both Kansas City and Cincinnati. And then, great series in Colorado, taking 2 or 3 games. Wish we could have won the last one, the day game, but it was still a fun series to be a part of. So, no, I think that overall the Brewers are looking pretty good with the momentum on our side. I think the treading water is a little bit too negative at this point. I think that there have been some highlights. So, no, I think the Brewers have come out with especially that first series in New York, have come out after that and have looked pretty decent. So I think their offense is just getting going. The patchwork pitching staff is obviously an issue. If you would have told me even just a few weeks ago that Chad Patrick would have the second highest number of starts amongst all of our starting pitching options, I don't know that I would have believed you. So, we're certainly dealing with not just injuries, but really having to find guys to fill in holes in the rotation from even outside the organization, as I'm sure we'll talk about here in a few moments.
Yeah, big kudos to Chad Patrick. I did attend his second start, home start for the Brewers, which he won on the Sunday against the Reds. And in fact, I think that was his first major league win. And yeah, kudos, there's a lot of his family members in attendance. Kudos to Chad Patrick. He single-handedly, in my opinion, has helped keep the Brewers rotation afloat with some not official quality starts, but really good starts for the Brewers. And kudos to him. He's a big reason why. Also, 2 of their really late spring training late off-season signings, I'll call them, in Tyler Alexander and Jose Quintana. Seemingly are very fortuitous, and those guys have been factors in our start here of the season too. So kudos to those guys as well for their performances early on. And then of course, we'll talk about a trade where actually we even increase our depth even more so, and that's by acquiring just last week Quinn Priester, former first round pick from the Pittsburgh. We acquired him from the Red Sox. He was a former Pirates first round pick back in 2018 out of Indiana High School, 18th overall in the first round. He about a year ago was traded to the Red Sox for Nick York, and now with their depth, they were able to part with him in kind of a time where we seem pretty desperate to bring in more starting pitching depth. And we brought in Quinn Priester and we gave away Yofri Rodriguez. This year, the 2025 competitive A balance pick, which is number 33 overall, and also a player to be named for Quinn Priester. Quinn Priester made his first start as a Brewer last week, Thursday, I believe.
Yep.
In Denver, which you saw, he had a great start. Unfortunately, the Brewers bullpen did not hold up. And
yeah, he gave up a leadoff home run, so it was sort of like, oh, here we go. And then he really settled down and looked great the rest of the game. And I will also say, Craig, I think that you were aware of this, but we did break that story on social media that Quinn would be the starter. There had been some rumors swirling about that he was going to be Brewers have been TBD on who was going to be starting on Thursday for a couple days. We saw Quinn out in Denver on Tuesday by the start of or Monday night, I think, Tuesday, whenever it was, Tuesday. And he actually confirmed to Brew Crew Review in person that he would be starting on Thursday before it was announced by the Brewers. So we were able to get that information out literally about a day and a half earlier. So it was kind of nice.
And I know that our inside source on that was not TC, Tom Carter, but it was actually Vince. And the source was directly from Quinn Priester. I don't know if he was exiting his vehicle or something in Denver, but wasn't that correct?
No, he was on the field. Yeah, I was on the field. I had told the Rockies about our press passes from 2005 or 6, and they, of course, were excited about that. So talked to Quinn on the field at Coors Field on Tuesday night. But no, that didn't come from our anonymous source, Tom Carter.
Oh, okay. TC. We'll still give TC credit where credit's due, though. But no. So he's part of the rotation now, and that's great. I guess real quick, just thoughts on the trade. My initial reaction was like, okay, wow, we gave up quite a lot for him. My first gut reaction was like, I hope this wasn't made out of desperation. I trust our front office to identify pitching enough at this stage to give us a pass on how much we gave up. Yofri Rodriguez is a pretty high ceiling young outfielder. But again, we obviously are stacked currently with young outfielders at the major league level and even at the upper levels of minor leagues. So I think he was expendable, so to speak. With that being said, even more valuable to me was the number 33 overall competitive A balance pick we gave up. That's actually one pick. We do have the number 32 pick overall in the draft as compensation for losing Willy Adames. So we did just give up the pick right after that to the Red Sox. So I guess we have a glut of picks in the top. Even after trading that pick, we still have 5 picks in the top 100. We've got pick number 20, number 32 for Adames. Our second round pick's 59th overall. We've got competitive B balance pick 68th overall, and our third rounder is 94 overall. So in spite of trading that pick, we still have 5 picks in the top 100 of the upcoming draft. And I think because of that, also the Brewers felt as if that pick could be expendable given the circumstances as well.
Yeah, and I know that there was a lot of people on social media that kind of, were outspokenly against this trade. But I will just say that I am pretty positive about this. Number one, because of, I think that, as you just mentioned, the Brewers have the ability to truly identify talent, I think, from other organizations. I think that they liked and targeted Quinn Priester very specifically because they like his toolkit. And I look at a guy like Priester, he's obviously big league ready. He's in the big leagues. He's pitched several seasons in the big leagues. He's also still not going to be a free agent until 2031. So he's not even ARB eligible till 2028. So you're, in any draft, even a very loaded draft, you're taking a flyer on these guys, and they, don't have, it's not an impossibility, of course, but they don't all have a chance to make the major leagues. I mean, they're not all going to pan out. So I think that you take this guy who's already at that level and stage of his career, and you still have him cost controlled and in your rotation, hopefully, if he can maintain his talent level and kind of reach maturation under the Brewers' guidance. for a number of years. So to me, this could be a, yes, you risk trading somebody that could blossom into an all-star in Rodriguez, but you've also got somebody who's already ready to step into the rotation right now, who's also going to be here until at least 2031, if he's able to do so talent-wise, and for a pretty cheap amount as well.
No, those are all great points. The fact that we have control of them for so many times, and not only that, but like when you acquire some, um, a player at the lower levels of minor leagues, there's still so many years that you have to wait for that development, and there's so much that can go wrong. Now, Quinn Priester, I think, has been, maybe not meeting all expectations. As obviously that's why the Pirates
Yeah,
traded him a year ago. But with that being said, I still think he has a nice pedigree, and the fact that he's major league ready really holds a ton of value for teams. As obviously the old
yeah.
adage this year seems more true, not just for the Brewers, but throughout Major League Baseball. The old adage is more prevalent than ever, and that's you can never have too much pitching.
Well, that's right, Craig, and not only for this year, but let's look ahead to next season a little bit. You've already got Savale, who's going to be a free agent, injured already this year too, by the way, who's going to be a free agent. Nelson Cortez is only here for the one season, at least contractually right now, so he is likely to hit free agency. So you've got already, just with that, a number of holes already in your starting
Quintana is
rotation. From
also only Quintana
Yeah, Quintana's a free agent. He signed a
Alexander only
one-year
on 1 year
deal. So
deal.
so we've got a number of guys who, yes, they could re-sign here, but we're going to have to, make some adjustments for guys who potentially might be leaving as well. And again, I think Priester fits that bill. He's young and he's cost controlled, and he's got a lot of years here in Milwaukee, hypothetically. So I think that's exciting. And obviously, if you're a first-round draft pick, you do have some sort of pedigree and you've got something to work with. And I am very confident, besides just in the Brewers front office, I'm also very confident in the Brewers' ability to send guys to get some work done at their pitching lab who, with the right tutelage and the right guidance, organizationally, I think that the Brewers have really turned a corner from, this isn't the 90s or early 2000s Brewers. This is a team that continually produces good pitching and who gets the most out of the pitchers that they do bring into camp. So I'm very excited to see what the Brewers can do and working with Priester now for the next few seasons.
And Quinn Priester, as a pitcher, he doesn't have necessarily the most electric raw stuff when it comes to his arsenal. However, he does have very above average control, and his ground ball rate is really, really good. And I think that's something that is attracted to the Brewers front office and their philosophy. And so I think, like I said, I completely 100% trust them as identifying. I don't think that they saw that all the injuries happening, and we're like, we desperately got to acquire someone, and just like kind of just, I don't have a feeling that
No, he
was
on a list, I think, way before
yeah.
injuries started to hit the rotation. I mean, you expect injuries, so I think you've got a list of guys that if you can get them and they become available, that they're on the board basically.
Yep. And and it's happening throughout baseball. People are losing pitchers left and right, and so far the Brewers are fortunate enough that hopefully most of the guys, you mentioned Cortez could have a long-term injury, but hopefully not. Obviously, only having control over him this year. But looking across baseball, even our division rivals, the Chicago Cubs, just this weekend lost Justin Steele to Tommy John surgery, and he'll be out all of this year too. So that's a huge blow to the top of their rotation, and obviously favorable for Brewers. But the overall, takeaway from this is, like you mentioned, looking at next year's rotation. You mentioned all those names, and I added Quintana and Alexander to Savali and Cortez as guys that we don't have really control over past this year. Even Brandon Woodruff actually only had a club option for this year that we picked up, so we'd have to re-sign him. And even though I do feel good if he shows himself being healthy, that there'd be a mutual interest between player and team to sign him to a longer or a deal beyond this year, that's not a for sure given either. So taking him out of the mix, now looking at who we do have over control, just real quick for Brewer fans to look at that possible 2026 rotation. Let's headline that with Freddie Peralta, who, might I add, will be in his last year of team control next year. So it's not a guarantee that I think that he would even start the season as the Brewers in the rotation necessarily, for sure. Obviously, if they decide they want to trade him. Beyond him, who else is going to be part of that rotation? Well, obviously, Tobias Myers, you would expect to be part of that. Robert Gasser coming back from injury. Aaron Ashby or DL Hall, I think one of them will be a member of the rotation, or at least a candidate, if not both of them. One of them may be the bullpen, but you just don't know. Then you've got Quinn Priester, Chad Patrick, and even some other guys that'll be ready. Minor leaguers, I think, would be more than ready to.
Jacob Mizrahi, if they're going to keep him as a starter. Yeah, Jacob Mizorowski, if they're going to keep him as a starter.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's at the top of that list. Jacob Mizorowski, you've got Logan Henderson, you've got Carlos Rodriguez, who even pitched for us a little bit last year in September. So that's 10 pitchers I just mentioned, not even including Brandon Woodruff that could be a part of the next year's rotation depth. And that's a really valuable thing to have as an organization. We have pretty cost control number of years where almost all those guys I mentioned, including now Priester and Patrick. So I mean, yeah, it's exciting to even look beyond this year as a Milwaukee Brewers. I really think that the organization is doing a great job of building depth within the organization and hopefully quality depth at that. So
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this on our show numerous times over the 20 plus years now that we've been doing this. But the Brewers pitching has not always been our strength. When we're looking back at historical Brewers rotations and guys that the Brewers have developed, it's a pretty small and pretty depressing list throughout franchise history. So it's pretty exciting when you do have younger pitchers that you are not only developing, but who are being developed properly under great guidance, organization wide, with some continuity from top to bottom of your organization. And that's where other organizations who historically have produced good pitching, and I'm thinking back to even, to the 60s, 70s, 80s, teams like Baltimore and St. Louis and others that were known for pitching development have been successful. It's when you got this organization-wide philosophy. And I think that the Brewers are finally doing that now. And it's pretty exciting. So, that's how the Brewers are, and they did this in 2024 as well. That's how the Brewers are able to make up for injuries. It's why you've got depth and guys from AAA that can step right into a system. I think that it's, just something that we haven't seen as Brewer fans historically. So it's awesome to see.
I can't agree anymore. And one thing the Brewers have always, at least as far as I can remember, always done really well, and that's always have a pretty well established closer, an elite closer at that. For most of the last couple of decades, I really feel like they've all the way back to like Dan Plesac, really, or even going further back than
Yeah.
that, I guess Raleigh Fingers. But I mean,
Yeah, Raleigh Fingers.
It seems like we've always had a really solid closer, and again this year that allowed us to kind of part with, I guess, Devin Williams, which again was a questionable move as we all think. But the bottom line is Trevor McGill and Abner Uribe, I guess, were there as depth, and maybe even in the minor leagues, like guys like Craig Yoel Payamps, and some other possible candidates for closer role. But in my opinion, Trevor McGill really, he profiles as have that mentality as a closer. I was pretty excited for him coming the year. Now, he did blow a save pretty massively the other day, but I mean, the bottom line is he also has having a second opinion on his knee, which is somewhat worrisome. Overall, what's your on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being very worrisome, what's your worrisome rate for the current state of the Brewers bullpen?
I think overall we're going to be fine. I am a little more concerned about McGill than maybe others, not because of the talent issue, but because of the knee. I think that game a couple of nights ago in Arizona was a little bit more on Payamps, to be honest, instead of McGill. He inherited a very bad situation. Yeah, he didn't look good either, but yeah. I do think that he was kind of thrust into a very bad situation, particularly that night. But I think that the Brewers have the depth, and I think that I do think you're going to see some roster moves this week. I think we could see the debut of Craig Yoho this week, when you've got a guy who's made 5 appearances at AAA and looked as good as he has. He's thrown, maybe it's, I think, six and a third scoreless innings, and we'll have Scotty's interns hand us the notes. But I think it's 6 and a third scoreless innings and 5 appearances so far for Yoho on the season, and he was electric in spring training. And you were there in spring training, Craig. I'm sure you witnessed this in person, but to me, he is definitely big league ready, and I think that the numbers bear that out, and his demeanor bears that out. And I think that Yoho is certainly going to be a key component of the Brewers bullpen going forward. And we saw, who got sent down a couple days ago. I think Elvis Peguero already got sent out after the Colorado series. So you have seen some, tinkering already with the bullpen, which is very typical for the Brewers. I mean, you see this every year, and you see guys come in and out throughout the course of the season. So I'm not overly worried, just because it was such a source of strength for previous years' teams. My biggest concern, though, is McGill's injury. And if McGill is going to be out for a sizable amount of time, I think you're going to see Uribe in that closer's role. Again, I think he can do it. I certainly think he's got the talent level to do that if indeed McGill does have an injury. But I do think that he is such a young guy. It would obviously be a lot better if we could establish McGill as our closer and Uribe as the eighth inning guy. That would be what I would do. But obviously injuries are going to dictate a lot of this as well.
Yeah, no, and I can agree more. I really think Craig Yoho is going to be exciting in addition to this bullpen, whatever role he takes on very soon. I'm excited for that as obviously his minor league numbers have been unbelievable, like just downright sick. Look, I guess my other concern, again, it's only been 2 bad outings, but Yoel Payam concerns me a little bit, and just the overall. I mean, I really think Jared Koenig is solid as a left-hander. Also,
Yeah.
Brian Hudson, I'm not too worried about.
Yeah,
But
solid.
For some reason, yeah, Abner Uribe, I think, is a very valuable member of the bullpen with his electric stuff. His lack of control still concerns me to be handed the reins to the closer, though. And not only that, but I do have some questions about his mentality / maturity level when it comes to being, a full-time closer at this stage of his career. Not saying that can change in a heartbeat, but there's if I'm a coach, there's some concerns there with him being able to handle the volatility of a closer role and the mentality that goes with that. Whereas, so that's my concern. So I guess my overall concern with the Brewers bullpen, it's still fairly high, just because of the fact that I think the Brewers are going to feel the loss of Devin Williams a little bit more than what they anticipated. I guess I'll just put that this season.
Well, I agree, Craig, but let's also, look at the team overall. And again, we've got injuries that have decimated our starting rotations. Then you've got to put a guy like Tyler Alexander, who was slated to be in the bullpen, into that starting rotation. You've got to fill some gaps. So I think that's part of the problem. I am encouraged by Nick Mears coming back. I think that Mears, a lot of Brewer fans kind of didn't like him because he had a few rough outings, I guess, after he was acquired from Colorado. But I actually like Nick Mears quite a bit. And I think, him coming back he had a viral infection and lost, 15 pounds or something like that in spring training. But we did talk to him as well in Colorado, and he said he's feeling great. I think he's just got 3 outings or 4 outings on the season, but he's currently sporting a 0.00 ERA, according to the numbers Scotty's interns just handed me, in 4 outings, 3.2 innings of work. So I think that his return, which happened just at the beginning of the series in Colorado, is pretty exciting as well. So I'm hopeful that he can be a stabilizing factor this year too.
That's a great point. I agree with you that Nick Mears is definitely going to be a vital part of the bullpen moving forward with what a role he is given. And yes, he even, we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I mean, he definitely is a high leverage right-handed reliever in this bullpen going forward, I believe. And that's going to be a valuable asset to have. So we definitely need him to have a solid season as well. So yeah, having Craig Yoho at AAA, on call to help when needed is also something very exciting, and not every organization has that luxury of that type of arm at AAA. So with all that being said, and again, the Mizorowski is being given, I guess, groomed as a starter, and he's doing pretty well starting off here at AAA. Obviously, he showed his lack of control in spring training or whatnot, and some concerns about being ready, and that's why he hasn't been given a role at the major league level yet. But I think there's a non-zero chance for him to still be transitioned as a bullpen arm, and possibly a late inning bullpen arm, as we've already talked about several times before, by the middle of this season. It's my belief that he and the Brewers both want to have himself remain a starter, and that's probably the route that'll go, at least for the remainder of this entire year. But things could change depending on how his development goes, I guess, is the only way to put that.
Yeah, and that was true. That's been true of every pitching prospect it seems like we've had in the past 10 years. We were debating for a while whether Josh Hader would be a starter or a reliever. And, I don't think anything's been determined yet. I think it's good that the Brewers are taking a nice long look at Mizorowski and his skill set. And I am very confident in the front office to make the right decision with that. I am hopeful that they get him set in one or the other, though, and that it's not like he's bouncing back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. I do think the guys, especially when they're that young, like Mizorowski is, I think that they really do have to have a set role and just run with it. And when you make the transition, that's fine, but it has to be set. Then you've got to you can try something, but you can't just keep bouncing back and forth. These guys are going to have different mentalities whether they're coming out of the bullpen or being a starter.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And then one other just like footnote I'm going to put to this segment is I really feel like Jose Quintana, when the end of the Brewers season happens, that he's going to be, in hindsight, one of the most astute signings of not only for the Milwaukee Brewers offseason, but possibly throughout all of baseball, with how late in the Brewers got him and how cheaply they are able to get him to sign, because he's a veteran and his debut was nothing short of phenomenal for the Brewers, and I hope there's more of that to come.
Yeah, $2 million signing for a starting pitcher with that pedigree and somebody who's been around for a long time. I think that even an average starting pitcher would be worth significantly more than $2 million. So I'm not really sure what happened with him during free agency, but I think it's very fortunate that he fell to the Brewers at that point. I'm glad that we were aggressive enough to, continue to monitor the markets to go out and get somebody, even if it was from the quote unquote, bargain bin. I think that Quintana is going to provide that veteran leadership for what's a very young rotation. And you've got a lot of guys that can learn a lot from Jose Quintana, whether he's in Milwaukee for just one season or ends up, staying here for longer. I do think that his impact he's the type of guy whose impact is going to continue to be felt for years if he's able to take on a mentoring role with some of our younger guys. I could certainly see guys like Tobias Myers and DL Hall and others learning from Quintana throughout the course of the season, and then, others as well at different points in their career, but certainly our young guys.
Yep, absolutely. Let's quick switch it over to the hitting side of things. And I guess I'll let you start this off. Who's a name a bat or two that's really excited to you so far here out of the gates, and a bat or two that has given you some concerns, I guess,
Sure.
coming out so far in 2025.
Yeah, and I don't know if Scotty wants to jump in or not, but if not, I'll go first. I definitely think Jackson Chourio is just living up to all hype and expectations. He's so exciting to watch. Seeing him in person in both Milwaukee and Denver the last week and a half, it's just so awesome that this guy's on our team for the next, 11, 12, whatever it is seasons. I'm so excited about seeing Jackson Chourio as a Milwaukee Brewer for life, and the fact that this kid's 21 years old and he's putting up the numbers that he is, looking as poised and calm as he does. I know he had a rough opening day, obviously, in New York. I think that we're going to look back and kind of laugh at that performance. We're over time with 5 strikeouts for the guy who ends up being MVP or something like that. But no, Jackson's numbers obviously have gotten much better since then, and he is living up to the hype. So a 292 batting average, 5 home runs, 17 RBIs already on the young season. So I'm super stoked just watching Jackson. And the ball just comes off his bat in a different way than it does for everybody else. And there was, the Colorado series. I know that the ball always flies well at Coors Field, but he hit several home runs in the series. He was hitting doubles off the wall. We saw him hit a triple. I mean, just incredible. Just was an awesome performance. So Bryce Terang continues to impress. I've been on the Bryce hype train for years, as you know, Craig. I'm like all in on Bryce Terang. Not only is he the best defender in the National League by literal award, but I think this guy is just getting better and better each year with the bat. He's currently hitting 333. He's got a 366 OBP. My biggest negative surprise on him is just that he hasn't stolen as many bases. He's got 3 stolen bases on the year, but I think that's kind of a product of some of the other predicaments our offense has been in. So I'm guessing we're going to see that number creep up, but I just love what Bryce Terang's overall game brings to the table for the Brewers day in and day out, both offensively and defensively. Biggest disappointment so far, no question about it, it's Rhys Hoskins. I know that we were talking or texting during our pre-production meeting, and I think that Rhys just, you look at the numbers and they're awful, 171 batting average, no home runs yet on the season, 4 RBIs total, more strikeouts than walks. I know you don't care about WAR, but he's at negative 0.4 WAR right now in 14 games. So Rhys, not only do the numbers look bad, but he doesn't pass the eye test as well. He really is looking kind of lost at the plate. So I'm hopeful that he turns it around, but he's my biggest disappointment so far. Glad to see William Contreras kind of turning things around. And I'll just say that Joey Ortiz, he's had some hard hit outs. So I think part of it is bad luck, and we can get into some of the metrics on that. But I think that Joey needs to step it up a little bit offensively. And I guess those are my biggest disappointments. I think I will just kind of say generally, I don't think that the Brewers have figured out third base yet. I think that Dunn looks better than Capra, but we certainly haven't figured out our third base situation yet to this point in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree on all your points, Vince. Obviously, Churio is super exciting, and his second half last year is definitely no mirage. And the Brewers have like not only a superstar on their hand, but I feel an elite superstar, franchise level type player, which is it just that's there's nothing more exciting than that. So we'll just sit back and enjoy Jackson Trio for the next 10 plus years, hopefully. And then in the meantime, the guys, the positives out of the gate, besides the guys you mentioned, I'm also going to give kudos to Sal Frelick. I think
Oh yeah, I
last
meant to as
last I
well,
looked,
Craig.
he was
He
like in
looks
top
great.
five in NL and batting average. Him and Bryce have both been
Yeah,
hitting, I think, over 333. And again, his defense is just phenomenal. Both him and Bryce,
yeah,
like just great players to have on team. And the fundamentals and the defense is just something that doesn't show up necessarily on the stat sheet, but it's there with these guys. That's all I got to say. And I think he's going to continue to have a full breakout year with the bats, so to speak.
yeah. That was
Disappoint.
on my list too, Craig. I meant to mention him too. So yeah,
Oh, sure.
absolutely on
Yeah.
sale. Totally agree with you.
And again, totally agree with you. Reese Hoskins, he's someone that I had convinced myself had an off year last year, but it was partly due to injury, and that he was going to have a big bounce back. I still want to believe that, but again, what we're seeing, eye test metric wise, everything is really alarming, I guess. And
Yeah,
the sad part of that is like his platoon partner Jake Bowers isn't necessarily someone I'd want to be giving more at bats to either. It's concerning, and it's again the Brewers have for a very long time now had a very, I guess it's an overall lack of production from the corner infield spots, and that is continuing. And now again, kudos to them because they've been great developing up the middle players all the way from training for an all-star catcher, developing great middle infielders and center fielders on all positions of the outfield. So I mean, there's it's the
and
little
that's
nitpick.
the Stern strategy. That goes back to signing Lorenzo Cain for up the middle defense, and I think that's been kind of a Brewers hallmark for years now. I mean, going on 10 years.
But it's my belief that on the corner infielders, you not only need hitting production, but you definitely need power, and we're not getting either from either of those spots. And it's going to be a problem as the season progresses unless we can do something about it. So I'd like to see them use their farm depth to possibly address that issue at some point, which they should have done in the offseason. But again, Hoskins, we were kind of stuck with his his player option being picked up. But on the flip side of that, I think we could have addressed third base a little bit better than what we did. No offense to Dunn, but I mean Durbin's hitting well at AAA, but he did get sent down. Maybe he's an answer there. I don't know. But the Vinny
Yeah, but
Capra,
Durbin. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the Vinny Capra Dunn platoon is just not cutting it. I can't see a path forward with that continuing on. But we'll see, I guess.
If we're going to go in house and we're not picking up somebody in the next few, let's say for the next 2 months, and I'm not saying I want that to be the case, but just hypothetically, my thought is that they stick with Dunn and ride that train and see what we got. We'll make Capra back up if anything, or send him down. And then I don't think my issue with Caleb Durbin isn't that he's not talented or wouldn't be helpful. I don't think that he has the arm to play third base at the big league level every day, and that is my biggest concern. I was actually just looking up last night, kind of, what are some of his strengths and weaknesses. And his arm is a real concern, and I don't think that he's necessarily cut out to be a third baseman. Both with his bat, it doesn't have a huge, power projection either. But I think the biggest issue for me is his throwing arm, and I just think starting every day at third base could be bad defensively, and I hope to be wrong about some of these things. So I personally would stick with Dunn, and I would bring up Durbin, and he could be your utility guy. I think that you're going to get more out of him than Capra overall, and I think that he's more versatile. So I'm all ready for the Caleb Durbin experiment to begin in Milwaukee and see what he can do at the big league level. I don't know that it's going to be as our starting third baseman.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I guess I agree with you on that. I also say, unfortunately, and this is why they should have addressed it better, in my opinion, but I also think Oliver Dunn has an equally weak third base arm, is not meant for that position
Yeah.
either. But that's kind of what we've
Right.
got. So outside of going outside the organization, now since we're mentioning that, there's actually a player that has caught my eye here on the waiver wire. And he's not technically on the waiver wire, but the Minnesota Twins just sent down to the minor leagues for a lack of hitting, I guess, at the beginning of this season. That's Jose Miranda. He's got third base experience at the major league level. He's still young enough where he could be one of these post-hype type prospect breakouts, in my opinion. I don't know what it would take to get him, but if I'm the Brewers, and again, I'm trusting their front office that they don't, if they don't like him as a starting third baseman, I agree with that assessment then. But it's my belief that he could be a major league starting third baseman and an upgrade for us, and it wouldn't cost that much. I would definitely look into that, but there's also a number of guys across the league that could qualify in the same heartbeat. It's much harder to acquire an established big leaguer that's having success at the major league level at this point of any season, obviously, to help out the team. So unfortunately, I'm going to guess that we're going to stick with our in-house options and hope that something plays out right, because that's what they had decided to do to go into the season, and they're probably going to
Yeah,
stick with their plan.
yeah, I know there were some rumors out there about Ryan McMahon and the Brewers and Rockies having some conversations. Looking at Miranda's numbers, the biggest thing that stands out on a negative sense is his strikeout to walk ratios. I mean, for this year he had 13 strikeouts, literally no walks yet on the season. Last year, 66 strikeouts, 18 walks. He's never been able to get even remotely close to matching strikeout and walk totals. And I don't know that his power numbers justify that approach. He had 9 home runs last year, so he's still in single digit home runs. He doesn't really stand out to me, but I could be off, and maybe he's young enough to turn that around still. I don't know, but those strikeout to walk numbers really do stand out as being a problem.
Yeah, no, it's obviously he doesn't have as good of an approach as some of the guys. But with that being said, if you look across the league, a lot of corner infielders don't have the best approach, but they do have better defense and they do have power. And I think Miranda brings much more than that than Dunn
Yeah.
and the Dunn and Dermott combination. So with that being said, I'm not writing this team. Matt Arnold and is so. I mean, we'll see what he thinks, but I'm just throwing that name out there as a potential, available player, so to speak, if indeed we're already looking outside the organization. I don't believe that we are, but I do think that we probably should be. But we'll see moving forward here. But overall,
what do you think about McMahon? What do you think about McMahon? Do you think that he's somebody that the Brewers should be looking at? Because obviously the Rockies are, in a very tough division, and they've gotten off to a fairly typical start for them. Unfortunately, it's and they're already, having to make up a lot of ground to get back in the race. So I'm guessing they're going to be sellers again.
No, I mean, McMahon's a solid player. I do think some of his past successful numbers have been a little bit of a result of Colorado, obviously, but I think he's pretty solid defensively, and he would be a good addition. I think he would cost much more than Miranda. And again, the Brewers might not be able to meet that price, but as the season moves on, if their in-house options are completely failing, I think that they might be willing to meet that price for a Ryan McMahon or a similar player. I guess just specifically, I'm not huge on Ryan McMahon just because I think he outside of Colorado, his numbers would not be quite as good. But again, he's probably a pretty solid player and would be an acquisition that I wouldn't be opposed to, that's for sure. So interesting.
Yeah, he's had double-digit home run totals. 20 is his lowest home run total in 5 of the 6 last seasons, with the only exception being 9 that he hit in the COVID season of 2020 and 52 games. So you would at least get some power there, and his batting average is not great, but it's not god awful either. He's kind of ranging between 254 and looks like 242. So it's kind of in that range.
Yeah, no, I mean, he would definitely be an instant third base starter on our team if we're able to acquire him. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. He just wouldn't be, if I'm running the team, he wouldn't necessarily be a target, but yeah, we'll see as the season moves on, just because of his price, what it would cost to acquire him. But no, overall, definitely still excited about this team. Like, we're just an exciting team to watch. We have a lot of young guys that play awesome defense, give their all. And again, there was that ominous feeling after losing the first game of the season. We're like, are we already on all of last year's season, the Brewers had never lost more than 3 games in a row as a team, which is quite an accomplishment to hang your team on. To start the 2025 season losing 4 games in a row was a little bit jarring.
Three of them we got like run rules. You remember the old high school rules where if it was like 10 runs or more, the game was over, and 3 of the 4 games we get like essentially run ruled by the Yankees.
Yeah, no, it was not. There was worrisome, but again, this is kudos to Murphy is that he's got the day by day mentality built into these guys, and they've already turned it around. Had a great homestand as you attended probably half the games yourself, Vince, and then
Yeah.
the Bird are 2-0 in my games too. So I mean yeah, so it's exciting. Like I said, the team defensively and on the base pass and with the bats, it's an exciting team. And you got Jackson Trio to anchor that with Christian Yelich, back in the lineup too. It's still an exciting team. And also, I should say that William Contreras got out of the gates very slow and is showing some signs of turning that around. So again, if we're clicking on all cylinders, I think our offense will be fine going forward too. So we
Hey,
should.
Craig, there's one name. There's one name that I wanted to talk about really quick that neither of us brought up, and that's Christian Yelich. What do you think about Yelly so far on this season? Obviously, the numbers are not there as we had hoped, but it's still obviously very early as well. And he is coming off a pretty major injury and back surgery and everything else. But Scotty's interns are hitting me the numbers. Currently, he's hitting 143 batting average, 262 OBP, 3 home runs on the season, which several of those were in Colorado, and a total of 10 RBIs on the season. What are you thinking about Christian overall?
My thoughts are I'm
games
happy to
here?
have him back in the lineup. His starting gate numbers are a little bit underwhelming, but I do think that the main thing with him is health. I think if he's healthy, his numbers will be there. My main concern over his productivity is still his overall long-term health, just because with his, I don't know what you want to call it, chronic back issue there. I think something could, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb in some ways that you got to hope that, and I think by DHing him more often than not, that really protects him a little bit. So that's good that we
Yeah,
have luxury to do that now. But overall, I'm not worried about
especially
him.
when Perkins comes back, it's going to be even better. When Perkins is part of the outfield mix, I'm excited about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we'll be getting guys back up from the IL that'll help improve the team like Perkins as well. And so one of the last little footnote here before we kind of wrap up the episode is the one what's your take on playing time so far for Garrett Mitchell, where he seems to be in a strong side platoon with Isaac Collins? What is your overall take on that?
I'm opposed to that. I mean, I think that they're concerned about Garrett's health just generally as well, and maybe that explains it partially. But I think Garrett Mitchell needs to be a starting center fielder, and he needs to be playing every day, even against lefties. I think that he is, talented enough that he certainly deserves a long, long look. And given the fact that he's had injuries in previous years that, were kind of fluky injuries, I don't think that they're systemic to him. I think that he will benefit from having a long look and playing every day and not being in a platoon situation. And I think that he deserves that. And no offense to Isaac Collins, who actually I talked to as well. He is a nice guy and he's got some talent and some utility for us maybe on the bench. But, Garrett Mitchell is a long-term piece for the Brewers in the outfield. And I think that he needs to play every day and that the Brewers need to start him. He needs to play, maybe all but one day a week, not, in a platoon situation with Isaac Collins or anyone else.
Yeah, so I won't even follow up on that. Based my thoughts are completely lockstep in line with yours. I was a little surprised at times to see Isaac Collins, no offense to the guy, hitting a top third over lineup when he was in there, and he started
Yeah.
several games so far. And I really feel
Yeah.
even against lefties, Garrett Mitchell should be given every day at bats. He's now at the point of his development where he needs to further develop and be able to hit left-handers, become an everyday player, which I definitely believe he is moving forward. And I think now is the
Yep.
time to give him those at bats. So with all that being said,
Especially now that he is healthy. I mean, you got to take advantage of these times when he is healthy. And again, I don't think he's got systemic health issues, but because of the injuries he's had in the past, he hasn't had the opportunity to play every day sometimes. And I really think he needs that right now.
yeah, no, that's also a very fair point that I completely agree with. Is that because of all his missed time, he hasn't even had that many regular minor league at bats because of all of his injuries over the last few years. And so now that he's at the major leagues, and you got to give him everyday at bats. I mean, it's maybe once a week or two to give him a night off or whatever. But besides that, he should be in the lineup every day against both sides pitching. Absolutely. So
I don't mind the proverbial like Sunday lineups that Craig Counsell was notorious for. But you don't do that on your typical like Tuesday night or whatever. Like I think that you can pick a day a week where you do get guys in off the bench and that's fine. But I don't think that you make a strict platoon between Garrett Mitchell and anybody. Like he's a starting outfielder, and until he proves over the course of several full seasons that he's not, I think the Brewers have invested enough time and energy, and he's a former #1 draft pick. He's exhibited tons of talent. I think he deserves every opportunity to play, including against tough lefties.
And I know the whole platooning two lesser players equal one great one is kind of a philosophy that the Rays have had for a while, and the Brewers have kind of adopted that. Obviously, Arnold previously being part of that organization. I will say that's one part of Arnold's front office thing that, if that's even a word, that I don't 100% agree with. I'm fine with a platoon at maybe one or maybe two positions in your everyday lineup. But other than that, I like to see guys that with everyday at bats, just because I think it's better for them to get in the rhythm of a Major League Baseball season and not being on the bench every other day or whatnot. For their overall productivity. That's just my opinion. And why not always play the guys with the best talent? And that's the philosophy that I have that when it comes to platooning. But anyway, all right. So I don't know if
Yeah,
you want to
I share that as well, and I think that even one position is too much for a platoon. To be totally frank, I think you have a starting lineup, and then you should go with that starting lineup. 95% of the time or whatever. And if you have a game where you don't use that lineup every once in a while, that's fine. But that's really just to keep your bench guys sharp enough to be functional. But guys are starters for a reason. They earn that until they don't, and then you replace them with somebody else who can be a starter. That's it, as far as I'm concerned. Other than that, situational stuff late in games.
Yep. And want to give two more quick shouts. Again, Chad Patrick, so far our unsung player of the year, and to his family who've been attending the games and supporting the guy. Pretty cool
Yeah.
to see him have the success and exactly when we need it. Also want to point out just a quick minor league tidbit. One of our minor leaguers who just missed Brandon's top 30 future Brewers list. I think he was number 31 according to Brandon. He was named the Carolina Player of the Week last Monday, and that is Josh Adamczewski, a second baseman who had a monster 400 plus home run in the beginning part of spring training. He was hitting like close to 600 after like 10 games here in the minor leagues for Carolina Mudcats, and he's an exciting name to watch in the future. So if you want to follow him, and for all those people that love following the minor leagues, check him out down at in the Carolina League for the Carolina Mudcats here for the Brewers and
Yeah.
League affiliates. Absolutely. So
well, and presumably now he's in the top 30 after we traded Yeferi Rodriguez for Quinn
absolutely.
Priester.
There's no doubt he will be next time Brand releases that. So all right.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. Check us all out on our social
Yeah.
medias.
Yeah,
Kudos
give us
to
a follow,
Scott's
guys.
intern.
Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say thanks again for Vince, who runs most of our Twitter account, and Scott's interns who add in for the stats that we get to spew out here during our episode. So thanks, Scott's interns.
Yeah, Scotty's interns really do the vast humans work on our social media as well, obviously as well. But thanks to them, and thanks to Scotty and Chad for all they've done to contribute to our show this week. Continue to give us a follow. Brewker Review 1 is our Twitter or X handle. You can send questions to Scott at Brewker Review Podcast with an S at gmail.com, and I'm sure he will check that and get back to you very soon, and we can get your questions next episode. And thanks to Vikram for lots of insight over the course of the last couple of weeks as well, following Brewer games, win or lose.
Yeah, thanks, Vikram. Stay classy and go Brewers.
Stay classy. Thanks, Craig. Go Brewers.